Hello my friend, welcome to your new planning session. This video is actually inspired by my friend Rachel. We talked about setting like 12-week year goals or quarterly goals, and I realized when I tried to teach it to her, I was like, oh, I don't actually, well, I have a system, but I don't really know the steps, and it is quite tricky when you just do your thing. So I thought this is a good idea to systemize a bit how I'm doing that, and then also teaching you, and maybe you want to try it out. What I did is I have made a little guide for it for myself, actually, in my season by season Trello board. It has 7 steps, but 1 is optional. I know there are people who don't really enjoy planning, so I think you can also make it way shorter, depending on what you like, what you need. What you need for this planning session is actually just paper and a pen, and then there are a lot of things you can do. I mean, you can use a really nice notebook, as I do. You can use the Trello boards that I have. You can try and make them. I find them really useful. And then obviously if you're more like the goals planner person from the Cultivate What Matters power sheets, you can just do that, or you can just use your planner. I mean, you need a bit of space to just kind of like doodle a bit, dream a bit, and then categorize it and systemize it. But it's also really nice to be in this planner, especially because the prep work, they have quite a lot of journaling questions in the beginning, which you're writing out, and that's a lot of fun as well. So you just have to find what works for you. Try with as little as possible and then build up on that. It's more important that you do it on a regular basis than what kind of system you're using. Just to share some planner wisdom. Okay, let's get started. When I think about the next season, or if you do a 12-week year, or if you plan the next quarter, before I'm actually kind of like reviewing my progress and all of that, I really like to start dreaming. I mean, just maybe using like a walk outside, or if you're on a vacation or a weekend trip, it would be nice to sit on a train or sitting somewhere and just think about, oh, what's going to happen the next 3 months, and think a bit about like what your dreams are, if you have any important dates in that period. Do you are traveling somewhere? Is something happening, except for like weather-wise, but also in your season of life? Maybe your kids getting back to school, or they start their summer vacations, for example, and will that change a lot of your rhythm? Is something happening at work that will be really busy season, or a very quiet season where you maybe are able to work on certain things a bit more than normal? I also like to think about some words that kind of like popping up that I feel like, for example, now we're going into spring, I really feel this word of making space for the things that matter. I also thought about airy, and I had some other words, but that's kind of like the making space stuck with it. I also like the idea to think about how do you want to feel this season, and that can be really different, and obviously things change within 3 months, but having like an idea and like a goal where you want to go is always useful, even though we have to change the path a bit in between. So what I do here in my season by season Trello board is I have, for every season I have 1 list, and I like to write down like when I'm doing it, like in what kind of time frame, and I also like to have like 1 or several words for describing that season I'm working on. And you can see I have done a little bit different before. I collected, when I did just the 12-week years, I just collected all the things I had been working on as like habits and the action steps. But since winter, I'm not doing 12-week years anymore. I'm just doing seasonal goals planning. So I have like 1 for goals, I have 1 for affirmations, and then I have the 3 months, January, February, and December. And this is something that I don't do within, I don't know, an hour or a day. This is something that I'm already working on in the previous season, and it's usually just things that are coming up. Like I'm the person who really likes new things after 2 or 3 weeks. I want to start that. And now I'm able to stop myself and say, okay, we put it on the list for the next season. And if you still think it's so cool, you can do it then, but not now. And that has been really helpful to have like just like a brain dump somewhere where you just can put everything you want to do next season or the next 12 weeks. That's really nice. And I also like to have one picture. Now I try to have like a seasonal picture for every season, and usually I do for the next season that's coming up. I just use any kind that I find on Unsplash or other picture websites, but then I like to replace it with a picture that is mine that I remember from that time. And I think that's really nice to kind of like look back and see, oh, right, like especially summer is just my favorite season. Every time I see the bleeding heart plant in my garden, it really feels summer. It's just, it makes me really happy. Okay, next step is optional. It is part of the quarterly refresh that you have in your power sheets, and that is if you have certain life areas that you have categorized, like career and family, or hobbies, or finance, or personal growth, spiritual, church, whatever, you can give that a number from 1 to 10 and rate it where you are right now. This is totally optional. I find it's nice to check in after 3 months and see, oh, okay, I have improved in, for example, finance or in relationships. You're also able to catch when you see, oh, something is actually getting worse, like let's say health. It can also give you a hint what you want to work on next season, depending on where your numbers are. I do see that most of my life areas currently are they are all pretty good. Like I have good numbers almost everywhere. I'm really happy with my life. I still have things where I want to work on and improve, and I think home has actually the lowest number, so this is something I'm gonna work on next season. And then obviously over a year you can see your progress, which is also interesting to look at. Next step is to look back. If you did the evaluation, you already have some clues, but and if you have done a previous 12-week year or quarterly goals or seasonal goals, then you can just look at what have you achieved from the goals that you set there. It's really important to not be too hard on yourself. I think most people will not be able to reach all of their goals, and that is part of it. And it's good to look at, okay, what are things, maybe some of the goals have changed. I might not think that they are so important anymore. It could also be that some goals are just seasonal goals that you don't want to focus on in the next season. And it's also important to look at the goals that you reached. What happened? What are the success factors for you? What has helped you to reach them? And can you transfer that into the other goals that you would like to reach? After that review, it's time to set new goals for the next season. I use my Trello board for that because in the power sheets you just have like a refreshed goals for all your goals, and then you can write down some action steps for everything. But I wanted to have like another 3-month goals, and that's why I have that in my goals list for spring 2025. And I'm just kind of like dreaming a bit, thinking about, like, for example, I'm trying to implement the baby steps of the Fly Lady, and my plan is to have 12 baby steps implemented by the end of the year. So it's quite easy to say I'm gonna implement 3 baby steps for this 3 months. And I also said that I have decluttered 1 room. So I'm guessing I will start actually with the living room. I would say most of my goals haven't changed a lot. I just keep on going doing them, like how much I'm gonna save or how many books I'm gonna read. 5th step is really important. You have to write down how you're gonna achieve these goals. And I'm using a bit more my yearly goals Trello board for that, because here I have written down everything. I have like always a check-in from how did the season go. I have written down what I'm gonna focus on the next month, but I also have all action steps that have come up with when I started like having all these goals. And sometimes I'm adding things when I'm coming over something. I have talked to somebody and I'm like, oh, I could also work on that. So I just put them all in the action steps card, and that really helps me to think, okay, is there something I could think of working on? I do not plan out the whole 3 months. I plan from month to month. If you're a 12-week year girl or guy, you probably have to plan a bit more over the 12 weeks. Think about what you're gonna concentrate on. If it's more like a project, it's also a bit easier to kind of like say, okay, in this week we want to work on that, and then later on that. And I personally see I work better with like monthly planning and then just taking out ideas from this action list and say maybe, oh, I would like to do a salad challenge for this month, and then maybe for winter I would do a soup challenge, for example. Yeah, you're gonna have to find out how flexible you are, how much flexibility you need if you want something planned completely out for the next 12 weeks, or if you want to have more wiggle room. That's something you have to find for yourself and what works for best for you. Something you should take time for is just to think, what challenges are approaching. I said, if you change a season of life in any kind of way, if your daily or weekly rhythm will change a lot. Let's say, for example, your kids are coming home from school during summer. That will definitely change a lot in your daily rhythm, and you have to incorporate that when you think about reaching your goals. It might be not the season where you can reach as many goals as you want. Maybe you have to choose that some goals are just not the right season for, or you maybe have to lower what you think you will be able to achieve. I also took out the body fat percentage because I know May is always a very tricky month for me. I usually never lose weight in May because I have so much trouble with sleeping. I'm just not able to fall asleep, which means when I wake up in the morning, I'm so tired. And I know it takes me at least a full month until mid-June until I'm kind of like on track again. And so I don't want to push myself on anything there. Maybe I will eat more sugar because I don't drink coffee or anything. So it will make it a little bit more tricky. And I also know that I will be traveling at least twice in that period. So that might also make it a bit harder to track my habits or actually working on them. I also saw from the last travel that it took me 1 to 2 weeks to kind of like get back on track. And that also means that progress isn't as big as if you stayed home for 3-4 weeks. Last step is to choose how you're gonna track your progress. Are you gonna use the tending list in your PowerSheets? Are you gonna use a habit tracker as an app or somewhere else in your planner? Are you gonna do a daily or weekly check-in? It really has to fit your life. Like for me, I only check in with the tending list like once a week, but then I have a habit tracker on my phone and I use that all the time. So I still see like my progress, and I also do a little review every week, checking in, seeing like how it's going. Maybe I have to change some ways I'm doing certain things. Maybe also have to archive a habit because I feel like I'm done with it. I don't need to track it anymore. You need like the habit and the tracking process. It's a part of it. And you also need some time to review it. It doesn't have to take long, but try to make it a daily rhythm to track and to review once a week. And then there is an optional step that I enjoy so much. You really don't have to do it, but this is where I feel so much joy making it, and that is to choose a word of the season. As I said, I chose making space this time for spring. It's also about creating some new routines. The PowerSheets has something really interesting. This is the weekly rhythm ideas, where you kind of like create your week, how you would like to have this season, like where do you want to work on certain goals, or where do you want to have time for things. I like the idea, and then I didn't feel like I used it at all. I decided I will do it the other way around. I will track now next week what I'm actually doing all week long, to see a bit like how does my season actually look like at that point. It's less for planning, it's more for documenting, but there's definitely some ideas you can have. You can also put like a whole schedule in your Google Calendar, for example. You can also create a bucket list. I mean, you don't even have to write it down yourself. You can just download one on Pinterest. There's so many, especially if you go with the seasons, you can really have like a summer bucket list or now a spring bucket list. I'm really looking forward to do that. And for everyone who's very visual, create a vision board. You just have to find a few pictures of what you want to become, what you want to get, what fits to your goals, and then you just create a vision board. I mean, in Canva they have so many templates that I can use. I like to create also a little picture with an affirmation because I have the app Vispo where you can kind of like have saying that affirmation to yourself and looking at the picture. It's just an extra step for the crazy people like me who likes that, but it's definitely not necessary. I would say that a vision board, I have it on my phone, for example. It really just helps a bit to also see the difference between, for example, the winter and the spring season. If I just look at these two different vision boards, I will put it in here, you can see it, and I'm like, wow, such a difference, like how it makes you even feel to look at them. So I just love the seasons. I'm really happy to work a bit more on living every season, enjoying them, and seeing the beauty also of every season, even though I have to say obviously summer is my favorite. So that was my step-by-step guide for planning your quarter, your season, or your 12-week year. I hope you really enjoyed this. Next video we will go through okay, how I'm gonna use this, the quarterly goals, into going into March and setting monthly goals or habits that I want to work on. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of this video. Have a wonderful day, and I see you very soon. Bye-bye.